judge has denied motions for dismissal in the Torrance police killing of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was shot to death during this encounter with officers in December 2018, partially captured on body-worn video. The officers said they fired because...
That's the biggest worry. I imagine the people who live in that apartment complex, when they saw that video, they automatically kind of assumed that that's what was going on, simply because there's other apartment complexes right here in Aurora dealing with that same issue, according to those building owners and those management companies. Now, take a look at that video. It was first given to us at daybreak on Wednesday, showing armed men breaking into multiple apartments at the Edge at Lowry apartment complex. Now, shortly before all of this video, there was a shootout that happened in the parking lot. I should say that happened after the video was taken. Now, this led to belief that a gang was potentially taking over the apartment complex. But on Friday, interim Aurora Police Chief Heather Morris, you heard from her just a few minutes ago, stated that is not the case.
Out here, we want to reassure the people that live in this community that we are actively investigating criminal activity that's happening and listening to them so that we can learn anything that we're missing. You know, what are we missing, and actually find out what exactly is going on.
And we know Aurora City leaders, they've gone on to say that Aurora is a safe place to live. I imagine there's just a lot of concerns right now considering other stories that have been going on. But the city of Aurora will be getting in touch with out-of-state owners of the apartment buildings who the city said were already in violation with codes and criminal activity before this entire incident happened. But definitely a story we'll be following. Of course, we'll keep you updated if more information becomes available. For now, live.
I didn't do anything wrong. So why should I have had to pay out all this money to prove that I was innocent?
Or DUI dismissed, but not after paying an estimated $8,000 in legal bills and towing costs.
Honestly, I'm a paycheck to paycheck person, and I think most people are. It's a lot of money, and you know, it's really not money I had.
Because we keep finding case after case after case of sober drivers arrested for DUI, we wanted to know if anyone knows how often it's actually happening. So we found these trackers of DUI arrests in the state, compiled by a conference for district attorneys. In the first 6 months of the year, nearly 3,000 DUI arrests resulted in guilty convictions. But look, 374 DUIs were either dismissed or what's called nulled, meaning the DA opted not to prosecute. One tracker report reading, unfortunately, we are seeing more and more cases being dismissed or nulled. But that's all we know. The DA's conference confirms they just collect the numbers of arrests reported to them by local prosecutors. It's the same numbers used to award police departments for making the most DUI arrests.
Good morning and welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m. bright and early right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. You know, I really appreciate it. We're starting our day out in New York City, where an off-duty corrections officer has been arrested and he faces weapons charges. Whoa. All right, so Manhattan, an off-duty Department of Corrections officer was arrested in Manhattan early Sunday morning and now faces weapons charges, according to the NYPD. Patrick Falls, age 32, was arrested in Midtown around 2:21 a.m. and charged with criminal possession of a weapon and criminal possession of a firearm, according to the NYPD. Falls was consuming alcohol with his firearm. Okay, is that some kind of New York thing? I mean, he was taking shots. Gives new meaning to taking shots, am I right? Okay, that's mean. Maybe it's roulette. Oh, just kidding. Okay. All right, you guys, that's not cool. Listen, we did Helen Keller last week, so, you know, who's next? All right. Anyways, on with the show, folks.
The City of Richmond and a police officer have agreed to pay more than $3 million to the family of an 18-year-old killed in an officer-involved crash back in 2022. You may remember we told you Jeremiah Ruffin and Tracy Williams were killed in a crash involving Officer Richard Johnson when he ran a red light in the city's south side. 8 News reporter Roland Wilson joins us in studio after digging through the court records to find these documents. And so, Roland, what have you learned from doing that?
Well, Deanne, I've learned the exact amount the City of Richmond and Officer Richard Johnson have agreed to pay the Ruffin family is $3.75 million. This decision, essentially another chapter closed for the Ruffin family as they still work through this unthinkable loss.
A wrongful death suit now settled.
Court documents show the city of Richmond and Richmond police officer Richard Johnson have agreed to pay the family of 18-year-old Jeremiah Ruffin $3.75 million. The agreement comes after Ruffin and 19-year-old Tracy Williams were killed in a crash involving Officer Johnson. According to police, on April 7, 2022, Johnson and an officer in training were called in as backup officers for a burglary call. Johnson ran a red light at the intersection of Bells and Castlewood Roads, hitting and killing Ruffin and Williams. The Ruffin family claims Officer Johnson demonstrated an utter disregard of caution and complete neglect of the safety of other motorists and passengers. In July, without admitting liability or negligence, the city and Johnson agreed to settle, a decision 8 News legal analyst Russ Stone says is often mutual.
Both sides don't want to run the risk of going to trial because, as somebody who's been doing this for 35 years, you really never know what a jury's going to do.
This decision comes after the city of Richmond and Officer Johnson agreed to pay the family of Tracy Williams $3.1 million in April of 2023. That same month, Johnson was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and later sentenced to 6 months behind bars.
Because he was a police officer and had no record, and that it was, not an intentional act on his part, the judge cut him a bit of a break as far as the sentence goes, and that's understandable. But there's no taking away the fact that 2 people died.
I reached out to attorneys on both sides of this case. Ruffin's family attorney tells me while the matter is resolved, they're asking everyone to keep the Ruffin family in their thoughts.
Developments tonight in the fight over transparency with the Austin Police Department. It has to do with what's known as the GFILE. It's a personnel file on police officers that contain complaints, whether there's evidence to support them or not. KXAN's Barrett Tryon has more on what a judge's ruling means.
A Travis County judge ruled late Friday the city of Austin's city manager and chief of police have, quote, unlawfully failed to perform their mandatory duty to end the city's use of the GFILE. Any official complaint made by someone in the public lands in the GFILE. If there is disciplinary action, they are public. If not, they're left private. They cannot be requested or viewed through a public information request. The GFILE is meant to keep a list of unsubstantiated claims against officers. One reason the department says is to prevent potentially harming officers' reputations for claims that have not been proven. It can also include complaints that officers were never disciplined for. The judge's decision means the use of a GFILE is now in violation of the Austin Police Oversight Act, which is part of Prop A. It was passed by voters in May 2023. The Austin Police Association has said before the kind of access to these files violated state law. So the city and city council wanted to wait to see how much of Prop A could be implemented. Equity Action filed a lawsuit when the city did not immediately adopt the changes that voters approved. The group argues the delay is stopping officers from being held accountable.
I don't believe that we're going to move into some world of radical transparency. I do believe that we are taking a very solid and important step towards a functional oversight system.
The Austin Police Association Vice President of Communications told KXAN on Saturday this is not the judge's final ruling and said the APA is waiting to see what the city of Austin's actions are moving forward. In Austin, Barrett Tryon, KXAN News.
Folks, we're banging through the headlines like we got to do, and we've come across breaking news. That's right, September 1, 2024, St. Pete officer arrested after making threatening comments to the mother of his children, the police say. And look at the sponsor of this show right there. Look at that. It must be election season, am I right? Okay. All right. Tampa, Florida. St. Petersburg officer was arrested and placed on leave after he made threatening comments to his partner outside of their home on Friday night. Okay. According to the officials, Officer John Antoine got into a verbal argument with the mother of his children outside of their home in Pinellas Park around 8 p.m. SPPD said Antoine made threatening comments to her while in full uniform and was also armed. What a jerk. Okay, the victim reported the incident to her employer and Pinellas Park PD, who arrested Antoine and took over the investigation since it occurred in their jurisdiction. Oh, so the victim reported the incident to her employer and Pinellas Park PD. That's strange. I wonder if her employer is Pinellas Park PD. I don't know. Antoine was arrested on one count of aggravated assault and was placed on unpaid administrative leave. His weapons were also seized. Police said the officer was sworn into St. Petersburg Police Department on October 2nd, 2017. Well, threatening your woman while you're in your full goofball clown suit with your gun on your hip, that ain't cool, bro. Now, all right, I don't know about that victim reporting the incident to her employer and Pinellas Park PD, but we'll leave that alone. All right, on with the show.
Manslaughter case against 2 Torrance police officers who shot and killed a man on duty in 2018 will proceed to trial over the objections of defense attorneys who say the criminal charges should have been dismissed. It's an important decision for DA George Gascon, who campaigned on promises to re-examine police shootings he thought were unjustified, including this one. Here's investigative reporter Eric Lennertz.
A judge has denied motions for dismissal in the Torrance police killing of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was shot to death during this encounter with officers in December 2018, partially captured on body-worn video. The officers said they fired because they said Mitchell had what turned out to be an air rifle or BB gun between his legs while the officers were investigating a report of a stolen car. Officer Matthew Concannon and now former officer Anthony Chavez, seen here at an earlier hearing, were cleared of legal wrongdoing in 2019 by the LA County District Attorney's Office under former DA Jackie Lacey. When DA Gascon campaigned, he said Mitchell's death was one of 4 police shooting cases he planned to reopen, and said last year when announcing the indictment of Concannon and Chavez, the officers' actions weren't reasonable.
I question whether the officers were able to see the gun before the shooting. We know that even the prior review indicated that, that there was no evidence that he was reaching for a gun.
Defense lawyers for the officers said the special prosecutor hired by Gascon for this and other shooting cases, Lawrence Middleton, also seen here at a previous hearing, improperly argued the officers' decisions before the shooting could be factors in deciding whether a crime was committed. California law didn't specifically add those factors until 2020, 2 years after Mitchell was killed.
The fact that in this case it was clear that they did so many things wrong leading up to it, which was ultimately what then led to them killing Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. It's incredibly important that we have cases like this that move forward.
Activists have been in court for many of the pre-trial hearings to support Mitchell's mother, who told me in 2019 that her son didn't deserve to be shot.
My son was no threat to them at all.
We've been following this case for months, and the judge has not allowed us to record inside any of the hearings. He didn't allow us to record the ruling today. Defense lawyers for both officers say they plan to appeal immediately, though the case will proceed to trial unless an appeals court intervenes. The special prosecutor, Lawrence Middleton, says he can't comment on the judge's ruling.
A Butte College campus police officer has been placed on leave and stripped of his powers as he was arrested on child pornography charges. 47-year-old Alan Charles was arrested this morning for possession and distribution of child pornography. The Butte County Sheriff's Office says it's been investigating Charles since July. Investigators say he gave out multiple pictures and at least one video that contained child pornography. Charles has been booked into the Butte County Jail.
Tonight, a major post-election controversy brewing in Manatee County. A petition with nearly 2,000 signatures calls for the removal of Manatee County Supervisor of Elections James Satcher.
10 Tampa Bay's Aduria Chumba has more on the allegations that Satcher fired election staff after he lost his own race.
Retaliation is not the only thing James Satcher is accused of. Some of the fired longtime staff allege bullying, intimidation, and incompetence on the part of the supervisor of elections himself and some of his hired staff. They insist that Governor Ron DeSantis needs to remove him now, and failing to do so could jeopardize the upcoming elections.
I've never been written up. I've never had a warning. I've never signed anything that says I've done anything wrong. I've been a supervisor there like for 15, 16 years. I mean, it was just unusual.
To be let go for no reason at all after being told that I was one of the top workers there, and then just to have somebody let you go, I was angry.
Former election workers speaking out, saying after last week's elections, they were out of a job.
People are being hurt by this. Okay, people are financially being hurt by this. And it's all in retaliation for him losing the election.
Tonight, James Satcher vehemently defending himself.
That's completely unfounded. They were let go, one of them because on election day he refused to do his job. The other one deliberately slow walking and not following clear directions.
That petition is calling for Governor Ron DeSantis to remove Satcher and replace him with Scott Tharrington, the supervisor-elect, who is also a Republican.
There's always going to be kind of that uniparty system, the good old boy, a little bit of the swamp, and that's what we're dealing with. I'm completely dedicated to professionalism, truth, transparency. That's what we've done in this election, and that's what we're going to do in November. Every vote's going to count. I might not agree with every vote, but I'm still going to count it, and it's still going to go to the state and be certified accurately.
This is a department that's being run so poorly. Okay, it's eroding voter confidence.
In Sarasota, Aduria
New here at 10 o'clock. We often hear law enforcement officers refer to each other as brothers and sisters in blue. That phrase takes on a literal meaning for the Fazio brothers, who followed in their father's footsteps. Fox Sky's Tori Carmen shares their story.
Meet Paul, Dan, and Thomas Fazio, three brothers serving the upstate with the Malden Police Department. The trio grew up in New Jersey, where their dad's duty was on full display.
Growing up, I wanted to be police, fireman, or in the military.
Their father steering them towards a career outside of law enforcement, which didn't go as planned.
He actually wanted us to be in separate trades just so we could build a house. Yeah, that's always the thing that he said. And now my mom has to deal with us in the job.
The oldest brother, Paul, making the first move south, followed by Dan and Tom.
The story of us coming to South Carolina, I give the analogy of kind of like throwing a pin on the map. Like we really didn't have a direction, so we packed up whatever we had and just moved here and haven't left. Malden opened up the door for Tom, which opened up the door for Paul, and then wound up opening up the door for me.
The youngest, Tom, is a sergeant with the K-9 unit. Dan is a corporal, and Paul just promoted to sergeant.
We'll sit back and think, it's like, you know, time flies. 5 years ago, I was graduating the academy. You know, you don't think you are where you're going to be in 5 years. And, you know, my dad always told us, like, don't rush time. In the blink of an eye, it's going to go that fast.
While the time flies, the Fazios make the most of their moments together, on and off the job.
I like to start that. I like to see what the outcome is.
And we actually critique each other and what we can do better and what we can't, you know. The downfalls, you know, it's like, all right, well, you could have done this better. Like, oh, well, you could have done this better. It's like, all right, I see where you're coming from.
The friendly competition on the job keeps them pushing each other to be better, while staying grateful for the full circle moment, working alongside each other in a career they love, just like their dad.
There's a purpose behind it, and that's why we chose and keep doing, you know, this type of field. So there's a reason for it.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to leave you with one last little video just to juxtapose those seemingly good cops there in that last piece with, well, the reason we do the Bad Apple Report right here at Home on the Range every morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early. You guys are absolutely awesome. So enjoy this last little piece, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early. Thanks again, folks.
Hey, don't resist, don't resist, don't resist, don't resist, don't resist. Hey, you don't got to push it like that. Don't resist. Do not have nothing. Hey, please do not resist. Do not resist.
He choked her and I have it on camera.
Hey, stop choking her. Stop choking her. Stop choking her. I got it on camera.
Baby,
I got it on camera, bro. You just choked her. Now you're being disorderly. He just choked her, bro. Bro, I got it on video.
And it's going all over the media.
I will go to jail? Okay.
For recording?
For recording? Okay.
For recording? We can go to jail for recording.
That's cool. No, it's okay. You good.